Picture this: Seattle Airport, 1973. A scared 9-year-old boy steps off the plane from Taiwan. He's wearing his uncle's hand-me-down coat that's 3 sizes too big. He can't understand a single word anyone's saying. Now picture this: that same boy today, stepping off his Gulfstream G650, net worth $130 billion. But here's what the Forbes articles won't tell you. He mortgaged his house twice, emptied his kids' college funds, had Silicon Valley CEOs laugh in his face, and came within 30 days of bankruptcy, 3 separate times. This is the real story of Jensen Huang, the dishwasher who built an empire. And trust me, you've never heard it told like this. The unlikely beginning: Roseburg, Oregon. While his classmates are planning who to ask to prom, 16-year-old Jensen Huang is on his knees in a Denny's bathroom, scrubbing toilets. It's 10 p.m. on a Friday night. His friends are at the movies. He's calculating how many tables he needs to bust to cover his family's rent back home. But here's where it gets interesting. Watch what Jensen does next. He pulls out a stopwatch, times himself cleaning each stall, takes notes on a napkin, tests different cleaning patterns, develops what he calls the optimal bathroom sequence. His manager thinks he's crazy. "Kid, it's just cleaning toilets." But Jensen sees it differently. Every system can be optimized. Every process can be improved, even this. He cuts his bathroom cleaning time from 45 minutes to 22. His manager promotes him to busboy, then waiter, then shift supervisor, all before he turns 17. Think about that. While other teenagers are learning to parallel park, Jensen's turning toilet cleaning into a science. This wasn't just about efficiency. This was about something bigger, a pattern that would define his entire life. Take the job nobody wants, master it completely, then revolutionize it. 30 years later, when Intel's CEO mocked him for focusing on graphics chips nobody wanted, Jensen would remember those Denny's bathrooms and smile. The triple culture shock. Now imagine being ripped from your home not once, but 3 times before you're even 10 years old. First stop: rural Kentucky, 1973. Jensen goes from bustling Taipei to a town where he's the only Asian kid for 50 miles. The locals stare. Some point. He doesn't understand why the lunch lady keeps talking louder and slower. Chicken or beef? As if volume could bridge the language gap. 6 months later, another move, this time to Oneida Baptist Institute in Oregon. His parents think a boarding school will help him learn English faster. What they don't know, it's a reform school. His roommate is there for stealing cars. The kid across the hall, assault. 9-year-old Jensen, sharing a dorm with teenage criminals. First week, he's walking to class when rocks start flying. "Go back to China," they shout. Never mind that he's from Taiwan. A rock catches him above the eye. Blood drips onto his only good shirt. Now here's where most kids would fight, or run, or call home crying. Jensen does something nobody expects. He notices the main bully, Tommy, failing math class. So the next day, Jensen leaves a solved equation on Tommy's desk. Then another, and another. Tommy corners him after class. "Why you helping me?" Jensen, in broken English: "You throw good, like baseball. I do math good. We trade?" Within a month, Jensen's tutoring half the bullies in pre-algebra. They stop throwing rocks, start throwing him their homework instead. The reform school principal pulls him aside. "How'd you turn those boys around?" "Easy," Jensen says. "Everyone good at something. Just need to find what." That 9-year-old kid had just discovered something powerful. Don't fight the system. Don't run from it. Find what it needs, then become indispensable. It's the same strategy he'd use 40 years later when every tech giant said his graphics chips were worthless. Instead of fighting them, he'd find out what they really needed. And just like those bullies with their math homework, they'd come running. Okay, stop. Let's pause right here. Because if you're not seeing it yet, you're missing the whole story. Notice something? Cleaning toilets becomes an engineering experiment. Getting bullied becomes a tutoring business. Being the only Asian kid becomes being the only one who bridges 2 worlds. Every single setback became a system. This isn't some feel-good motivational nonsense. This is a pattern, a code, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's what Jensen figured out at 9 years old that most CEOs never learn. Problems aren't obstacles, they're blueprints. Think I'm exaggerating? Fast forward 30 years, it's 2019. The US government just banned Nvidia from selling to China. 40% of revenue gone. Overnight, stock tanks, board panics. What does Jensen do? He treats it like those Denny's bathrooms, like those rock-throwing bullies. He doesn't fight the ban. He doesn't lobby Washington. He learns Mandarin at 56 years old, studies 14 hours a day, has his engineers redesign chips specifically for what China can legally buy, turns a government ban into a product line. By 2021, Nvidia's China revenue is higher than before the ban. See it now? The pattern? Most people see problems and think, how do I escape this? Jensen sees problems and thinks, what system does this reveal? And here's the kicker, this pattern isn't unique to Jensen. It's learnable, it's repeatable, and if you're watching this thinking I'm too old to change, remember, the kid scrubbing toilets with a stopwatch is now worth more than McDonald's, Disney, and Netflix combined. The pattern was there all along. We just had to notice it. The first fortune lost. By 1993, Jensen Huang had achieved the American dream. And I mean the dream. Stanford electrical engineering degree? Check. Beautiful wife who believed in him? Check. 2 kids in private school? Check. Director of core technology at LSI Logic? Pulling in 6 figures? Big check. His parents could finally brag at family gatherings. That scared 9-year-old who couldn't speak English, now he's designing microprocessors for Fortune 500 companies. He's got the house in Fremont, the 2-car garage, the 401k that's actually growing. At 30, Jensen Huang is set for life. And then, he throws it all away. Not for another job, not for a better offer, but for an idea so insane that when he explained it to his colleagues, they literally laughed out loud. You want to make computer chips for video games? Jensen, video games are for children. This is career suicide. His boss at LSI pulls him aside. I like you, Jensen, so I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. Take the weekend. Think about your family. His mother calls from Taiwan. I don't understand. You have a job. Why would you quit a job to maybe get a job? Even his wife, Lori, supportive, wonderful Lori, sits him down at the kitchen table. Jensen, we have a mortgage. The kids need college funds. And you want to start a company based on what exactly? Graphics, he says. Graphics, she repeats, for games. Not just games, for everything. Someday every computation will need graphics. She looks at him like he's speaking Mandarin, which ironically he is not, yet. But here's the thing about the American dream. Version 1.0, that's the steady job, the safe path, the predictable life. Jensen was about to download version 2.0, the one where you bet everything on an idea nobody else can see. The one where you go from director to nobody, from 6 figures to no figures, from security to 3 guys meeting at, wait for it, a Denny's. Yes, that Denny's, the one where he used to scrub toilets. The American dream was about to come full circle, and nobody, absolutely nobody, thought it would work. April 5th, 1993, 7:30 a.m., San Jose. Jensen walks into a Denny's on Berryessa Road, the same chain where he scrubbed toilets 14 years ago. The breakfast rush smell hits him. Coffee, bacon grease, industrial soap. His hands still remember the feeling of those yellow rubber gloves. 2 men are already waiting in a corner booth. Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem, ex-Sun Microsystems engineers. Brilliant, broke, and just crazy enough to listen. The waitress approaches. Same uniform Jensen used to wear. What'll it be, hun? Just coffee, Jensen says. We're going to be here a while. And then, on a napkin, yes, an actual Denny's napkin with the logo still visible, Jensen starts sketching. Okay, forget everything you know about computer graphics. Forget how IBM does it. Forget how Intel does it. What if we built a chip that thinks like a human brain? Curtis nearly spits out his coffee. Jensen, that's not how computers work. Exactly. Jensen keeps drawing, circles, arrows, something called a graphics processing unit. The napkin gets crowded. He grabs another, then another. Look, he says, right now CPUs do everything sequentially, one calculation, then another, like a very fast idiot. Chris leans in. Okay, but what if we could do thousands of calculations simultaneously? Parallel processing, like how your eye processes millions of pixels at once without thinking about each one. The waitress refills their coffee. 4th time, they don't notice. Jensen, Curtis says slowly, you're talking about redesigning the fundamental architecture of computing. Yes. With no money. Yes. And no customers. Yes. In an industry dominated by billion-dollar companies. Yes. They sit in silence. The breakfast rush swirls around them. A kid at the next table is playing with a Nintendo Game Boy. Terrible graphics. Blocky. Slow. Jensen points at it. See that? In 10 years, that device will have graphics indistinguishable from reality, and we're going to be the ones who make it possible. Chris looks at Curtis. Curtis looks at Chris. You know what? Chris says, my wife's going to kill me, but okay. Mine too, Curtis adds. I'm in. The waitress brings the check. 8.74 12 hours of coffee. They shake hands over the napkin sketches. 3 guys, $0. One impossible idea. He keeps that receipt, frames it. 14 years later, when Nvidia goes public at a $230 million valuation, it's hanging in his office. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because first, Jensen has to go home and tell Lori. Jensen looks at it and laughs. Guys, we better make this work. This is literally all the funding we have. That conversation, that's where things get really interesting. How was work? She asks. He walks in the door that night. Lori's cooking dinner. The kids are doing homework. Normal Tuesday night in suburban San Jose. I quit. We're starting a company. Graphics chips. For games. I quit. The spatula stops moving. You? What? Nvidia has exactly one product. The NV1 chip. Their entire company, all 40 employees, has worked on nothing else. 18-hour days, 7-day weeks. And their first customer? Sega. The Sega, makers of Sonic the Hedgehog. Gaming royalty. Jensen tells his team, this chip will change everything. He's right, just not how he thinks. September 1995. The NV1 launches. Jensen's in the office, champagne ready. The phone rings. It's Sega. But they're not calling to celebrate. Jensen, the chip doesn't work. What do you mean? I mean it doesn't work. Nothing renders correctly. The games look like melted crayons. We're canceling the contract. The room goes silent. Jensen puts down the champagne, unopened. Here's what that means in real numbers. Sega was 70% of Nvidia's revenue, gone, overnight. But it gets worse. The NV1 used something called quadratic texture mapping. Sounds fancy, right? Except the entire industry was moving to triangles. Every single competitor. Triangles. Nvidia spent 2 years perfecting the wrong technology. Like building the world's best typewriter in 19... Sure, it's amazing, but everyone else has moved to computers. Jensen calls an all-hands meeting. 40 engineers crammed into a conference room. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, he says. We have 2 months of cash left. Maybe 3 if we stop buying coffee. Someone laughs nervously. Nobody else does. That night, Jensen goes home, looks at his mortgage statement, looks at his kids' college funds, does the math. There's only one option. Lori, he says at dinner, I need to mortgage the house. She stops cutting her chicken, again. And we need to liquidate the kids' college accounts. The children, Michelle 10 and Spencer 7, look up. Are we poor now? Spencer asks. Jensen can't answer, because honestly, yes they are. Over the next weeks, Jensen becomes a ghost, leaves before the kids wake up, returns after they're asleep. His daughter Michelle starts leaving notes on his pillow. Daddy, are you okay? He's not okay. He's watching everything crumble. Employees start leaving. Why stay on a sinking ship? Here's the part Jensen never talks about in interviews, the night terrors. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, calculating runway. 2 months, 8 weeks, 56 days. Lori finds him one night at the kitchen table, head in his hands. Maybe I should go back to LSI, he says. Beg for my old job. Is that what you want? I want my kids to go to college. I want to not lose our house. I want to sleep. She sits down across from him. You know what Spencer asked me today? What? He asked if you were building something important. I said yes. He said, then why does everyone want Daddy to stop? The next morning, Jensen calls another meeting. 12 engineers left, down from 40. Okay, he says, we failed, spectacularly, publicly, expensively. The NV1 is dead, Sega is gone. We have 8 weeks of money. He pauses. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to build the NV2. And this time, we're using triangles. Jensen, his lead engineer, says, that means starting over, completely. That's 18 months of work minimum. Then we better work fast. We have 8 weeks. That's impossible. Jensen looks around the room. 12 exhausted faces. His entire remaining company. You know what else was impossible? A kid from Taiwan who couldn't speak English, running a tech company. A Denny's busboy competing with Intel. Everything about us is impossible. So what's one more? And here's where it gets crazy. They do it. 12 people, 8 weeks. They create a working prototype of the NV2. But, and this is crucial, they don't just pivot to triangles. They create something called a graphics pipeline that can be programmed, reprogrammed, evolved. It's like building a car engine that can transform into a jet engine while it's running. The rest of the industry builds fixed chips. Nvidia builds shapeshifters. 6 months later they land a contract with Diamond Multimedia. Small company, not Sega. But it's enough. The first paycheck clears. Jensen drives home, parks in the driveway of the house he almost lost, walks in to find his kids doing homework at the kitchen table. "Daddy," Spencer shouts, "you're home before bedtime." "Yeah, buddy, I am." Michelle looks up from her math homework. "Dad, you look less tired." "I feel less tired." That night, for the first time in 8 months, Jensen Huang sleeps through till morning. The NV1 disaster, it nearly killed Nvidia, but it also taught them the most valuable lesson in tech. It's not about being right the first time, it's about being able to transform faster than anyone else. That ability to completely reinvent themselves in 8 weeks, they'd need it again, soon. Because near-death experience number 2 was already waiting in the wings. Now here's where Jensen Huang does something that nobody, and I mean nobody, sees coming. It's late night. Nvidia just survived the Sega disaster by the skin of their teeth. They've got their triangle-based chip. Gaming companies are interested again. Logic says, stay in your lane, focus on games, build what customers want. But Jensen's not looking at his computer screen, he's staring at his coffee cup. "What if," he says to Chris Malachowski, "we're thinking too small?" "Too small? Jensen, we almost went bankrupt. Maybe let's just focus on not dying." "No, listen, what do games do? They entertain people?" "No, what do they do, technically?" "They render images, quickly, repeatedly." "Exactly. Now what else needs to render images quickly?" Chris shrugs. "I don't know. Movies?"
Bigger.
"Television?" "Bigger." "Jensen, what are you?" "Everything. Everything that has a screen will need what we're building. Every calculation, every simulation, every piece of data humans want to see." Chris stares at him. "You want to pivot from games to everything?" "Not pivot, expand. Games are just the beginning." The next board meeting, 5 investors sitting around a conference table. Jensen stands up.
"Gentlemen, I want to talk about the future of computing."
Jensen, the lead investor, interrupts. "We invested in a gaming chip company. Are you making gaming chips?" "Yes, but..." "Then make gaming chips." Meeting adjourned. "Wait, let me show you something." He pulls out architectural blueprints. Not for a chip, for a building. This is a new hospital being built in San Francisco. You know what they need? Real-time 3D visualization of MRI scans. Our chips can do that. Silence. This is a seismic research lab at Stanford. They need to process millions of data points to predict earthquakes. Our chips can do that. More silence. This is Jensen. The lead investor's voice is ice cold. "You're delusional." "Am I? Or am I the only one here who sees what's coming?" What's coming is bankruptcy. If you don't focus, you're not Intel, you're not IBM. You're 40 people in a strip mall. 38, Jensen corrects. 2 more quit yesterday. Exactly my point. Stick to games. Jensen looks around the room. 5 faces, 0 belief. Respectfully, no. "Excuse me." "I said no. We'll make gaming chips. The best gaming chips in the world. But we're also going to design them to do things nobody's imagined yet." "Like what?" "I don't know. That's the point. In 10 years, 20 years, someone's going to invent something that needs massive parallel processing. And when they do, we'll be the only ones ready." The lead investor leans back. "You know what, Jensen? You're right. You are delusional. But fine, it's your funeral." Jensen walks out of that meeting with 0 support and total conviction. He goes back to his team, all 38 of them. "New plan," he announces. "We're not building chips for what exists. We're building chips for what doesn't exist yet." "What does that mean?" asks his lead engineer. "It means we're going to add something called CUDA, Compute Unified Device Architecture. Basically, we're going to make our graphics chips programmable for any task." "But why would anyone want to run non-graphics programs on a graphics chip?" "I have absolutely no idea, but someone will, someday, and when they do, we'll be ready." The room is skeptical. Hell, Jensen is skeptical. But remember the pattern: problem becomes system. The problem: they're too small to compete with Intel in general computing. The system: make specialized chips that can become general when needed. It's like building a race car that can transform into a truck. Nobody needs it now, but someday. 2006. 11 years later, Stanford researchers discover they can use Nvidia gaming chips to simulate protein folding. Calculations that took months now take days. 2012. AI researchers realize Nvidia chips can train neural networks faster than anything else on Earth. Self-driving cars need real-time image processing. Guess whose chips they use? ChatGPT launches, runs on 10,000 Nvidia chips. That board member who called Jensen delusional? His investment firm's $5 million stake would be worth $4 billion today, if they'd kept it. They sold in 19, made 10x their money, thought they were geniuses. Jensen, he kept building for futures nobody could see. Delusional? Maybe. But when you're building for everything, you only need to be right once. And Jensen Huang was about to be very, very right. The laughingstock years. Ever been mocked at your high school reunion? Jensen was mocked by the entire tech industry for 5 straight years. Businessweek called him the little chip company that couldn't. Intel's CEO laughed at him on stage. His own engineers quit to work at real companies. Even his daughter was embarrassed. Her friend asked if Dad worked at Fry's Electronics, the retail store. This is the story of how the laughingstock became the last one laughing. Here's how bad it gets. Tech conferences. Jensen walks in. Conversations literally stop. Not out of respect, out of pity, or amusement. Hey look, they whisper, it's the graphics guy. Like being called the poetry major at a business school reunion. One venture capitalist, I kid you not, introduces Jensen at a 2001 event as the CEO of that cute little gaming company that thinks it's Intel. The audience laughs, actually laughs. Another conference, 2002, a panel called The Future of Computing. Intel's there, AMD's there, IBM's there. And Jensen. The moderator turns to him, so Jensen, while these companies are building the future, you're making toys for teenagers. More laughter. Jensen smiles. Tight. Controlled. We're making parallel processing units that will... Yes, for games, we get it. Next question. Businessweek runs an article, the little chip company that couldn't. They don't even use Nvidia's name in the headline. Just little chip company. Like they're not worth naming. Fortune magazine's Companies to Watch list explicitly includes a section called Companies Not to Watch. Guess who makes that list? 3 years running. But here's the part that would break most CEOs. It's not just public mockery, it's the private betrayals. Engineers Jensen trained, mentored, promoted. They're leaving for real tech companies. One exit interview actually says, I need to work somewhere people have heard of. His own board members take him to dinner. Jensen, maybe it's time to sell. Intel might give you a decent price. You could be a division president. Division president. The kid who revolutionized computer graphics, reduced to middle management at the company mocking him. Even, and this is the one that stings, even Lori asks one night, are you sure we're on the right path? They're at their kitchen table, same one where she supported the Denny's dream, but it's been 10 years. 10 years of being told you're wrong. The kid's friends don't even know what you do, she says softly. Michelle told someone you make computer parts. Her friend asked if you work at Fry's Electronics. Fry's Electronics, the retail store. Jensen looks at his wife, the woman who mortgaged their house, twice, who believed when no one else did. And for the first time since the Sega disaster, he doesn't have an answer. Because maybe they're right, maybe he is just the graphics guy, the toy maker, the little chip company that couldn't. Maybe the entire tech industry sees something he doesn't. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the other way around. The mockery's about to get worse, much worse. But first, we need to talk about what happens when the world's biggest software company decides to destroy you. And why Jensen Huang does the one thing nobody expects. He sends his engineers to study toys. March 2000 Comdex Conference, Las Vegas. Intel CEO Craig Barrett takes the stage. 6,000 people in the audience. Jensen Huang sitting in row 15. Barrett's talking about the future of computing. Then someone asks about competition. Competition? Barrett smiles. That patronizing smile. From who? AMD. Sure, they're legitimate. But companies like Nvidia? He pauses, makes sure the cameras are rolling. Nvidia is a niche player in a niche market. Graphics chips for gamers? That's like making better typewriter ribbons. Interesting. Irrelevant. Intel does real computing. The audience chuckles. Business journalists scribble notes. Jensen sits perfectly still. By market close, Nvidia stock drops 50%, 50, in one day. Jensen's phone won't stop ringing. Board members. He calls an emergency all hands that night. 300 engineers crammed into the cafeteria. So, Jensen says, Intel thinks we're irrelevant. Silence. Our stock got cut in half. More silence. Craig Barrett, the CEO of Intel, just told the world we don't matter. Someone in the back mutters, maybe he's right. Jensen hears it, addresses it directly. Maybe he is. Intel's worth $200 billion. We're worth $2 billion. They have 80,000 employees. We have 500. The room deflates. But here's what I want you to do tomorrow. I want every engineer in this room to go to Toys R Us. Wait, what? I'm serious. Go to the toy store, buy something from Hasbro, buy something from Mattel, study it, take it apart, bring me a report. His head of engineering raises a hand. Jensen, why are we studying toys? Because toys understand something Intel doesn't. Which is joy. The room is confused. Their stock just crashed. Their CEO wants them to play with toys? Intel makes processors, Jensen continues. Efficient, fast, boring. They're selling computation. But look at successful toy companies. They don't sell plastic. They sell imagination, experience, emotion. He pulls out a Furby. Yes, a Furby. That annoying robotic pet. This thing has terrible processors, minimal memory, but it sold 40 million units. Why? Because it creates delight. It makes people feel something. An engineer interrupts. You're comparing us to Furby? No, I'm saying we've been thinking like Intel, building faster chips, better specs. But what if we thought like Pixar instead? Pixar makes movies. Pixar makes emotion. They just happen to use computers to do it. What if that's our real market? Not graphics cards, emotion cards. The room is skeptical, but Jensen's just getting started. Intel thinks small because they think in gigahertz. We're going to think in giggles, in gasps, in oh my god, did you see that? Next day, 300 Nvidia engineers descend on Bay Area toy stores. Confused cashiers ring up hundreds of Transformers, Tamagotchis, and PlayStation controllers. They spend weeks studying toy design, color psychology, user engagement, how Mattel makes Barbie feel real, how Nintendo makes Mario feel joyful. The reports start coming in, patterns emerge. Successful toys don't compete on features, they compete on feelings. Jensen calls another meeting. New mission. We're not competing with Intel on processing power, we're competing with Disney on wonder. That's insane, someone says. Exactly. Intel would never think of it. That's why we'll win. Here's what happens next. Nvidia starts designing chips not for benchmarks, but for experiences. Not how fast, but how beautiful. Not how efficient, but how immersive. They create something called GeForce. Intel mocks it. Graphics are a distraction from real computing. GeForce 3 launches. First chip capable of cinematic effects in real time. Gamers lose their minds. 2002 GeForce 4. Hollywood starts using it for pre-visualization. 2003. Intel tries to enter graphics. Their chip fails spectacularly. 2004. Same conference, same stage, Craig Barrett again. Someone asks about Nvidia. This time Barrett doesn't smile. They've carved out an interesting position. Nvidia's stock has recovered, then doubled, then tripled. But here's the kicker. That toy store research. It didn't just help them build better graphics cards, it taught them something Intel never understood. The future of computing isn't about calculation, it's about imagination. And once you understand that, everything changes. Intel spent the next decade trying to catch up. They never did. Because how do you compete with joy? You don't. You just build faster typewriter ribbons and wonder why nobody's buying. Near Death 2. The Microsoft betrayal. Just when things are looking up, Salvation arrives, wearing a Microsoft logo. The Xbox, Microsoft's first gaming console. And they need graphics chips, powerful ones, custom ones, exactly what Nvidia does best. The contract? Massive. We're talking hundreds of millions. Enough to fund operations for years, enough to finally silence the doubters. Jensen signs the deal in Redmond. shakes hands with Bill Gates himself. This partnership, Gates says, will change gaming forever. The champagne tastes different this time. It tastes like vindication. Back at Nvidia, Jensen announces bonuses, hires 100 new engineers, moves to a real headquarters, no more strip mall. They've made it. For 6 months, life is good. Xbox development kits ship with Nvidia chips. Game developers rave about the graphics. Pre-orders explode. Then, February 2001, Jensen's assistant walks into his office, face pale. Microsoft on line 1, their head of Xbox. Jensen picks up. "Hey partner, how's..." "Jensen, we need to talk in person, tomorrow." The tone, that tone, Jensen's felt this before. Next day, Microsoft conference room. 12 executives. One agenda. "We're switching chip suppliers." The words hang there, like a diagnosis. "I'm sorry, what?" "AFK offered a better deal. We're switching, effective immediately. But, we have a contract." "Had. Read the fine print. We can terminate for strategic realignment. This is us realigning." Jensen's throat goes dry. "We built our entire production line for Xbox. We hired specifically for this. Not our problem." And just like that, Microsoft's gone, taking 40% of Nvidia's revenue with them. But here's what Microsoft doesn't know. Jensen just mortgaged his house, again, to fund Xbox production, chips that are now worthless, inventory that nobody wants. The drive back to Nvidia, 5 hours, Jensen pulls over twice to vomit. Emergency board meeting that night. "How bad?" the lead investor asks. 6 months of cash, maybe 7 if we fire half the company. "So fire them." "I can't." "You can't. Jensen, this is business, not..." "I hired them for Xbox. I looked them in the eye and promised stability. I can't." "Then you'll be bankrupt by August." Jensen goes home. Laurie's already in bed. He sits at the kitchen table, same table where he's made every major decision. It's 2 a.m. He's 41 years old, 2 kids in high school, a mortgage he can't pay, a company dying for the second time. He does something he hasn't done since Denny's. He calculates minimum wage, how many hours to pay the bills. Could he go back? Would they even hire him? "What if I have to go back to washing dishes?" He actually says it out loud, to the empty kitchen. At 41, after Stanford, after building a company, after everything. What if he's just that 9-year-old kid again, the one who didn't belong, the one throwing rocks couldn't break? But rocks didn't break him then. 3 a.m., still at the table, Jensen starts sketching. Not chips, not architecture. Jobs. Every Nvidia employee, their names, their roles, their families. 312 people counting on him. 4 a.m., he's still sketching, but now it's different. It's not about saving jobs, it's about using them differently. What if instead of firing half the company, he split the company in half? Team A, scramble for any contract, graphics cards, workstation chips, anything. Team B, build something Microsoft would regret walking away from. 5 a.m., Laurie finds him at the table, papers everywhere. "Did you sleep?" "Microsoft killed the Xbox deal." She sits down. "How bad?" 6 months of money, maybe.
Maybe what?
"Maybe I should have stayed at Denny's." She looks at the papers, sees the employee names, the sketches, the plans. "You know what you're not seeing? A way out?" "No, you're not seeing what I see. A man who won't let 312 families down. That's not a Denny's dishwasher, that's a leader." 6 a.m., Jensen calls an all hands. "Microsoft fired us. We have 6 months of cash." "I'm not firing anyone. We're going to war. 2 teams, 2 missions, 1 goal, survive." An engineer raises his hand. "What about Xbox?" "Forget Xbox. We're building something better, something Microsoft can't walk away from. Ever." "What's that?" "The future. And this time, we're going to own it, not rent it." 6 months. That's all they had. They made it in 5. But the how, that involves Jensen's craziest bet yet, the one where he decides to compete with his own customers. And somehow makes them thank him for it. 2003. While every graphics company is fighting over gamers, Jensen Huang shows up at Stanford Medical School. Not to get his head examined, though his board thinks he needs to. He's in a basement lab, watching a PhD student trying to model protein folding on a supercomputer that costs $2 million. The simulation will take 3 months to run. What if I told you, Jensen says, you could do that in 3 days? The scientist laughs. With what? Magic? With a $500 graphics card. Graphics cards are for video games. Exactly what everyone thinks. That's why they're wrong. Next week, Jensen's at UC Berkeley, then Harvard Medical, then the National Institutes of Health. His sales team is bewildered.
Jensen, these researchers have like $12,000 budgets total for the year.
Perfect. Perfect? A single enterprise deal with Dell is worth more than every university in America combined. You're thinking about today. I'm thinking about Tuesday. What's Tuesday? The day these scientists change the world. Board meeting. The investors are not amused. Let me get this straight, says the lead partner. While ATI is locked up with Microsoft, while Intel is spending billions on marketing, you're visiting biology labs. Molecular biology, computational chemistry, fluid dynamics, climate modeling. Jensen, these scientists have no money. Yet. Yet. When is yet? When they cure cancer, when they predict hurricanes, when they discover new drugs, when the world realizes every breakthrough requires massive computation. That's a beautiful speech. How does it pay salaries today? Jensen pulls out a letter from a researcher at Stanford. Dear Mr. Huang, your graphics card just helped us simulate a protein that might cure Parkinson's. What used to take our supercomputer 3 months took your chip 3 days. We need 1,000 more cards. Signed, Professor Chen. 1,000 cards? That's what, $500,000? From one lab, there are 12,000 labs in America alone, each one drowning in data, each one desperate for computational power. But here's the genius move. Jensen doesn't just sell them cards, he creates something called CUDA. Remember that? The programming language that lets scientists use graphics chips for any calculation. He gives it away. Free. The board loses their minds. You spent millions developing software, and you're giving it away. Insulin was discovered in 1922. The inventors sold the patent for $1. You know why? Because they were bad businessmen? Because they understood. Some innovations are too important to hoard. When you democratize discovery, you don't just make money, you make history. A handful of scientists start experimenting with CUDA. 2006, papers start appearing. GPU-accelerated protein folding, climate modeling on graphics processors. 2008, every major research university has Nvidia GPUs, not for games, for science. 2010, the scientist who Jensen met in that Stanford basement, he uses Nvidia chips to simulate Alzheimer's proteins, identifies 3 drug candidates. 2012, Hurricane Sandy, predicted with unprecedented accuracy using GPU climate models, saves thousands of lives. 2016, the board member who said scientists have no money, his wife is diagnosed with a rare cancer. The drug that saves her life, discovered using molecular simulations on Nvidia hardware. He calls Jensen, I owe you an apology. You owe me nothing. Thank the scientists. But here's the part nobody saw coming. Those broke scientists Jensen courted, they grew up, became CTOs, founded biotech companies, ran AI startups. And when they needed chips, millions of them, who do you think they called? The company that believed in them when they had $12,000 budgets. Today, scientific computing on GPUs is a $50 billion market. Gamers, they're still important. They're about 20% of Nvidia's revenue. The other 80%? It comes from a basement in Stanford, where a graphics card cured what supercomputers couldn't. All because Jensen bet on people everyone else ignored. Scientists with no money. Yet, the 15-year overnight success. For 15 years, Wall Street called him the CEO of maybe someday. Then 2023 happened. Everyone talks about AI's explosion. Nobody talks about the decade Jensen spent being mocked. Again. 10 years into the new millennium, the scientists love him. Gamers worship him. But AI researchers, they think he's an idiot. Conference after conference, the same dismissal. GPUs for artificial intelligence? That's like using a sledgehammer for surgery. Real AI needs specialized chips. Precise, elegant, not your gaming toys. 2 years later, Google announces TPUs, tensor processing units, built specifically for AI. The tech press goes wild. Google leaves Nvidia in the dust. Why GPUs are yesterday's technology? The beginning of the end for Jensen Huang. Even friendly journalists ask, Jensen, isn't it time to admit GPUs aren't right for AI? No. But Google's wrong. Google? The company that invented modern AI? They're wrong? Yes. The interviewer actually laughs, prints the quote with the headline, David versus Goliath, if David were delusional. Amazon builds custom chips, then Microsoft, then Tesla. Every tech giant, every AI lab, all building around Nvidia. Jensen keeps preaching GPUs, keeps improving CUDA, keeps getting ignored. But here's what the public doesn't see, the toll at home. 5 years into this AI winter, Jensen's father is dying. Lung cancer, stage 4. Hospital visits between board meetings, chemo schedules around product launches. One night his father asks, "What exactly do you build?" Jensen's explained it 100 times, graphics chips, parallel processing, AI acceleration. His father nods, doesn't understand, never has. But what does it do? What can I see? Jensen pulls up videos. Pixar movies rendered on Nvidia, scientific breakthroughs, even some early AI demos. His father watches, sighs. When will you build something people understand? Something normal? Dad, this is important. In 5 years, maybe 10, AI will... I don't have 5 years. Silence. I just wanted to see my son build something I could point to. Tell the nurses, my boy made that. 3 months later, the funeral. Jensen's giving the eulogy when his phone buzzes. Another article, is Nvidia's AI strategy finally dead? He turns off the phone, buries his father, and that little boy inside him who wanted to make his dad proud. The mockery continues for years. Jensen's still pushing GPUs for AI? Adorable. Someone should tell him the war's over. Nvidia, great for games, irrelevant for intelligence. His engineers start doubting. Maybe we should build custom AI chips too? No. But everyone else is wrong. How can everyone be wrong? Jensen points to a photo on his desk, not his father, a young researcher named Alex Krzyzewski. Because of him. Years earlier, this unknown PhD student used Nvidia GPUs to win ImageNet, the Olympics of AI, beat every custom chip, every supercomputer. With gaming hardware, nobody noticed, except Jensen. One student, one breakthrough, that's all it takes. But that was years ago. Where's the revolution? Coming. When? When the world realizes AI isn't about specialized chips, it's about scale, flexibility, raw power, everything we've been building. More mockery, more custom chips, more Nvidia is irrelevant articles. Jensen's reading another brutal review when Lori walks in. You know what your father would say? That I'm wasting my life on things nobody understands. No, he'd say his son is too stubborn to quit, just like him. She's right, his father worked 3 jobs, never complained, never quit. The pandemic arrives, the world goes digital. Suddenly everyone needs computing power. Massive, flexible, available computing power. Guess who has it? ChatGPT trains on 10,000 Nvidia GPUs, not Google's TPUs, not Amazon's chips, gaming hardware. The explosion. Every AI company on Earth scrambling for Nvidia chips. The stock price goes vertical. Jensen becomes one of the richest humans alive. But here's the moment that matters. A nurse from his father's hospital recognizes him. You're the AI chip guy. My daughter uses ChatGPT for homework, says it's magic. It's not magic, it's just math, parallel processing, graphics technology repurposed for... She cuts him off. She wrote a story about her grandfather. The AI helped her find the perfect words, made us all cry. Jensen stops. Something people understand, something normal, something a proud father could point to. My boy made that. He visits his father's grave that afternoon, sets down a printout of the nurse's daughter's story. It took a while, Dad, but we built something people understand. Love, loss, memory, connection. We just used math to get there. The ChatGPT moment. November. OpenAI releases something called ChatGPT. Within 5 days, 1 million users. Within 2 months, 100 million. The fastest growing application in human history. And suddenly, everyone has the same question. How is this possible? The answer? 10,000 Nvidia GPUs. Not specialized AI chips. Not quantum computers. Not some secret technology. Graphics cards, originally designed for video games, 10,000 of them working together. Jensen's phone starts ringing, and doesn't stop. Microsoft CEO, we need chips, now. Google CEO, whatever you have, we'll take it. Every startup founder on Earth. Help. The same people who mocked him, who built custom chips to avoid him, who called GPUs toys. Now they're begging. Nvidia stock explodes, 500% in 18 months. Jensen's net worth goes from comfortable billionaire to top 20 richest humans alive. But here's the twist everyone misses. This wasn't luck. This wasn't timing. This was preparation meeting opportunity. Jensen pulls out a presentation from 20 years ago, shows it to a reporter. Look at slide 15. The reporter reads, future applications, natural language processing, generative AI, human-computer interaction. You predicted ChatGPT, and the reporter checks the date, 20 years ago. Not ChatGPT specifically, but I knew computing would need to understand humans, talk to us, create with us, and that would require massive parallel processing. So you just waited? No, we prepared, every year, every chip, every software update, building toward this moment. The reporter's confused, but if you knew this was coming, why didn't you tell anyone? Jensen laughs. I did. Every conference, every interview, for 20 years, nobody listened. He pulls up old quotes. GPUs will power the future of AI, Jensen, 15 years ago. Called delusional. Every computation will eventually need graphics technology, Jensen, 10 years ago. Called desperate. We're building for problems that don't exist yet, Jensen, 5 years ago. Called foolish. But you kept building anyway. You know what my father used to say? Plant trees whose shade you'll never sit in. He meant it about family. I applied it to chips. The production crisis hits. Everyone wants Nvidia chips, more demand than supply, by a factor of 10. Other CEOs would maximize profit, auction to the highest bidder, create artificial scarcity. Jensen does something different. He implements allocation fairness. Small startups get chips, not just giants. Universities get priority. Researchers working on climate, medicine, education, they jump the line. Board member calls. You're leaving billions on the table. We're not building a monopoly, we're building a movement. That's not how business works. That's how this business works. We waited 20 years for this moment. We're not going to waste it on greed. But here's the part that brings it full circle. Jensen's touring a data center. Thousands of Nvidia chips humming, powering AI that writes poetry, diagnoses diseases, teaches children. The facility manager mentions something offhand. You know what's funny? This whole building runs on a principle called parallel processing. Like everything happens simultaneously instead of sequentially. I'm familiar with the concept, Jensen says dryly. Oh right, of course. But did you know the idea actually comes from how restaurants operate, multiple stations working at once? Some business school professor figured it out studying fast food kitchens in the 70s. Jensen stops walking. Fast food kitchens? Yeah. Apparently some Denny's manager wrote a paper about optimizing workflow, made every task parallel, revolutionary for its time. Jensen doesn't tell him, doesn't mention the 16-year-old with a stopwatch, timing bathroom cleaning, creating the optimal sequence, learning that everything can be parallelized. That night he calls Lori. Remember that Denny's in Roseburg? Where you worked? Of course. I want to buy it. Buy it. Why? Because that's where it started. Not the company. The idea that every system can be optimized. Every sequence can be parallel. Every problem is just a pattern waiting to be recognized. Jensen, that was 45 years ago. And it took every one of those years to get here. ChatGPT, AI, the future. It all started with a kid timing toilets. He does buy the Denny's, turns it into a museum, free admission. Above the entrance, a sign. Every revolution starts with someone doing the job nobody wants. Inside, next to a display of the original Nvidia napkin sketches, there's a stopwatch. Still running. Still timing. Still optimizing. Just like Jensen taught it to. Everyone knows about ChatGPT. Nobody knows that 4 years earlier, Jensen almost lost everything, again. May, 4 years before the AI explosion. U.S. Commerce Department. One announcement. Nvidia banned from selling to China. Not some products. Not some customers. Everything. Everyone. Effective immediately. 40% of Nvidia's revenue. Gone. Overnight. The math is brutal. That's not a haircut. That's an amputation. Emergency board meeting. The numbers are on the screen. Red. Everything's red. We need to cut costs. Fire 30% of staff. Maybe 40. No. Jensen, this isn't like Microsoft. This is the US government. You can't negotiate with... Watch me. But here's what Jensen does next. Nobody expects this. He doesn't call lawyers, doesn't lobby Washington, doesn't even complain to the media. He downloads Duolingo. 56 years old, running a company in crisis, and he's learning Mandarin, 4 hours a day, every day. His executive team thinks he's lost it. Jensen, we need a legal strategy, not a language lesson. The legal strategy is simple. We follow the law, every letter, but we're going to do something else too.
What?
We're going to understand. Understand what? What China actually needs, not what they want to buy, what they need, and then we're going to build exactly that, legally. 6 weeks later, Jensen boards a plane to Beijing. His Mandarin is terrible, broken, but he tries. First meeting. Chinese officials expect an American CEO with translators, lawyers, demands. Instead, Jensen opens in Mandarin. My Chinese is bad. Like a child, but I'm learning, because respect starts with language. The room freezes. Then something amazing happens. They laugh, not at him, with him, this billionaire CEO, butchering their language, trying anyway. Mr. Huang, your pronunciation is interesting. My daughter says I sound like a robot with a cold. More laughter. The ice breaks. Here's what Jensen figures out. The ban isn't about technology. It's about fear. China fears dependence on American tech. America fears China's tech advancement. Both sides are right. Both sides are wrong. What if, Jensen proposes, we design chips specifically for the Chinese market, lower specs, different architecture, fully compliant with US law? Why would we want inferior chips? Not inferior, different, optimized for your needs. AI training for language models in Mandarin, graphics processing for your gaming market, scientific computing for your universities. And this is legal. Every chip will meet US restrictions, but together, they'll give you what you need. 12 trips to China in 1 year. 12, while running a global company, while learning Mandarin, while redesigning entire product lines. His staff begs him to slow down. You're killing yourself. No, I'm saving us. Trip 3, he's explaining chip architecture in broken Mandarin, mixing up words, calling processors potato chips by accident. But he keeps going. Trip 6, his Mandarin's better. He's reading technical documents, slowly, with a dictionary, but reading. Trip 9, he gives a presentation, 20 minutes, all in Mandarin, about parallel processing and AI, makes technical errors, grammar errors, doesn't matter. What matters, he's trying. A Chinese executive pulls him aside. You know what convinced us? The chip designs. No. The effort. Most American CEOs send lawyers. You sent yourself. And you learned our language at almost 60 years old. That's not business, that's respect. By trip 12, Jensen's built something unprecedented. A product line that follows every US restriction, but still serves Chinese needs. Revenue doesn't just recover, it grows. The US government is puzzled. How are you selling to China while following the ban? By understanding the difference between what's restricted and what's needed, and building exactly in that gap. That's impossible. So was learning Mandarin at 56, but here we are. The Chinese nickname him Lao Huang, Old Huang, term of endearment, respect. But here's the part that matters. 3 years later, ChatGPT launches. The world needs chips, desperately. And Nvidia, they're the only company that maintained relationships everywhere. America, Europe, Asia, even China, within legal bounds. Because while others built walls, Jensen built bridges. In broken Mandarin, 1 word at a time. His father would have understood, the man who spoke 3 languages, who knew that survival meant adaptation. Today, when Jensen gives speeches in China, he still opens in Mandarin, still makes mistakes, still apologizes for his pronunciation. And they still applaud, not for his language skills, but for something rarer. A CEO who responded to a government ban by learning to say thank you in the language of the people he could no longer serve. That's not business strategy. That's human strategy. And it saved Nvidia. Again, the unusual billionaire. Most billionaires buy yachts. Jensen still eats at Denny's. Here's why. You've seen it in every photo, every conference, every interview, the black leather jacket. People think Jensen's copying Steve Jobs, the uniform, the signature look. They're wrong. A reporter asks him once, "The leather jacket, is that your Steve Jobs thing?" Jensen laughs. "Steve wore turtlenecks to look sophisticated. I wear the same jacket because I'm lazy." Lazy? You know how long I spend choosing clothes each morning? How long? 0 seconds. Black t-shirt, jeans, jacket, done. That's 10 minutes I can spend thinking about parallel processing instead of what matches what. But here's the real story, the one he doesn't usually tell. The jacket, he bought it in his 40s, right after the Microsoft betrayal. Nvidia's almost dead. He's got bigger problems than fashion. Walks into a Macy's, grabs the first jacket that fits, black leather, on sale, $90. "Sir," the clerk says, "we have other options, different styles." "Does it fit?" "Yes, but..." "I'll take three. 3 of the same jacket." Problem solved for the next decade. And that's exactly what happens. Same jacket, every day, for 20+ years. His wife Lori tries. "Jensen, you're a billionaire. You could have custom suits, designer, anything." "Why?" "Because you look like you're heading to a motorcycle rally, not a board meeting." "Good. Let them underestimate me." But it goes deeper. One morning, his daughter Michelle catches him getting dressed. She's visiting from college. "Dad, do you realize you've worn that jacket to every important moment of my life?" "Have I?" "My high school graduation, college acceptance, every birthday dinner. That jacket's in every photo." "Is that bad?" "No, it's consistent, like you." That's when Jensen realizes what the jacket really is. Not fashion, not laziness. Identity. "You know what takes energy," he tells his leadership team. "Deciding who you are every morning, what image to project, what message to send. I decided 20 years ago. Black jacket. Done. Now I can focus on what matters." A young engineer pushes back. "But doesn't appearance matter? First impressions?" "You're right. It does. So what's my first impression?" "Honestly, you look like you don't care about conventions." "Exactly. Because I don't. I care about innovation. And every minute I spend thinking about fashion is a minute stolen from physics." The jacket becomes legend. Employees joke about it. Jensen's jacket has its own security badge. But here's what they notice. In a world of tech CEOs playing dress-up suits for Congress, hoodies for developers, polos for golf, Jensen's always Jensen. Same jacket meeting President Biden. Same jacket touring factories. Same jacket accepting billion-dollar contracts. A fashion magazine actually writes an article, "The Power of Not Caring, Jensen Huang's Anti-Fashion Statement." They miss the point entirely. It's not anti-fashion, it's pro-focus. Every decision takes mental energy. What to wear, what to eat, what to say, how to appear. Jensen does the math. Say each clothing decision takes 2 minutes, times 365 days. That's 12 hours a year, times 20 years. That's 240 hours. 6 work weeks, gone, on matching socks. "You know what I built in those 240 hours? He asks the reporter. "CUDA, the thing that made ChatGPT possible. Still think I should care about fashion?" But the best part? The jacket's falling apart. 20 years of wear, elbows worn thin, zipper repaired 4 times, lining patched. His assistant offers to buy a replacement. Same exact style, nobody would know. "I'd know. It's just a jacket." "No, it's proof." "Of what?" "That the best things aren't replaced, they're maintained, improved, evolved, like our chips, like our company, like everything worth building." He gets it repaired. Again. The tailor shakes his head. "Mr. Huang, this jacket has maybe 1 more year." "Perfect. So do I. According to my last doctor's visit, we'll retire together." The tailor doesn't know if he's joking. Neither does Jensen. But that jacket, it'll outlast them all, because it's not about leather and thread. It's about choosing once and committing forever. Whether that's a jacket, a technology, or a belief that graphics will change the world. Same philosophy, same discipline, same jacket. Every single day. If you work at Nvidia, you know the ritual. Wake up, check phone, and there it is, email from Jensen, timestamp 5:03 a.m. Not corporate buzzwords, not delegated messages, direct thoughts from the CEO's brain to your inbox while the world sleeps. One engineer describes it, it's like having Yoda text you before breakfast. If Yoda was obsessed with parallel processing and read too much science fiction. Because here's Jensen's morning routine. 4:30 a.m., wake up. 4:45 a.m., coffee and Isaac Asimov. 5 a.m., email the entire company his thoughts. 5:30 a.m., respond to customer complaints, personally. Yes, the CEO worth $130 billion is answering support tickets before sunrise. A customer tweets at 11 p.m., my graphics card failed after 2 years, pretty disappointed in Nvidia. 5:07 a.m. reply, hi David, Jensen here, that's not acceptable, what's your order number, let me fix this. David thinks it's a bot, or a social media manager. Is this really Jensen Huang? It's 5 a.m., my social media team is smarter than me. They're sleeping. Order number? David's replacement card arrives next day, hand-delivered, with a note, sorry we let you down. JH. But back to those 5 a.m. emails. They are different. Stream of consciousness. Part strategy, part philosophy, part book report. Subject line, what foundation teaches us about GPUs?
Titanium.
Reading Asimov's Foundation series. Again, psychohistory predicts future through math. Sound familiar? We're building the same thing. Every GPU is a node in a galactic computation network. Don't think chips, think civilizations. Jensen, P.S. The empire always falls. Unless it evolves, keep evolving. Employees forward these to each other. Did you get the one about Dune and thermal dynamics? What about the one connecting Harry Potter to parallel processing? My favorite was Star Trek transporters and data compression. A new hire asks HR, are these emails normal? Define normal. Our CEO is comparing our supply chain to the spice trade from a fictional universe. Oh that. Yeah. Wednesday. But here's why it works. A journalist shadows Jensen for a day, watches him write these emails. Why science fiction? Jensen pulls out a worn paperback. Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End, published in the 50s. See this chapter? Clarke predicted satellite communication, decades early. You know why? He was a visionary. No, he was an engineer who read fiction. Science shows what's possible. Fiction shows what's necessary. He flips pages, margin notes everywhere. Look, Clarke writes about a global computer network, where all human knowledge is instantly accessible. Sound familiar? The internet, which we're powering, with GPUs, that started as gaming toys. You see, today's impossible is tomorrow's obvious, but only if you read the manual early. Science fiction is a manual, the best manual, written by people unafraid to sound insane. 5 a.m. the next day. Company-wide email. Subject, why Ender's Game explains our competition. Team, in Ender's Game, children play games that are actually real battles. They don't know it's real. That's us. Every game GPU we ship is training someone to change the world. They just don't know it yet. Intel thinks we make toys, let them. We're training humanity's next generals, in disguise. Jensen, P.S. The enemy's gate is down. In our case, the enemy is sequential processing. A competitor's CEO asks one of his engineers, what's Nvidia's strategic planning process? The engineer, who used to work for Jensen, laughs. Their CEO reads The Martian and decides to build chips for Mars colonies. That's ridiculous. SpaceX just ordered 10,000 Nvidia chips. For what? Mars colonies. But the customer service part, that's the real magic. A small game developer in Poland emails support. Their indie game is glitching on Nvidia cards. Tiny company, maybe 50 downloads. Email from Jensen himself. Looked at your code, try adjusting the buffer pipeline in section 3.2. Also, your game reminds me of Stanislaw Lem's Solaris. The loneliness of space. Beautiful. Keep building. The developer's stunned, fixes the code, game works perfectly. 5 years later, that developer creates a breakthrough VR experience, sells for millions. First person he emails, Jensen, you debugged my code at 5 a.m. when nobody knew who I was. Jensen's reply, 5:08 a.m. I still don't know who you are, but your code's much better now. An employee asks him once, why answer customer emails? You have 10,000 people who could do that. Because every customer is teaching us something about our products, our failures, our future. Why would I delegate my education? But at 5 a.m., that's when the teaching's clearest. No meetings, no noise, just problems and solutions. Like science fiction, pure thought. The 5 a.m. emails become Silicon Valley legend. Other CEOs try to copy, send pre-written corporate messages at dawn. They miss the point. It's not about the time, it's about the connection. Raw thoughts from a CEO's morning reading straight to your inbox. Customer problems solved before coffee. One employee frames her favorite. Subject: Hitchhiker's Guide and Stock Options.
Team.
Answer to life, universe, everything? Answer to parallel processing? Still working on it. But we're closer than yesterday. Don't panic. Jensen. P.S. Your stock options are worth more than a towel now, but keep the towel. You'll need it for the tears when we hit $1 trillion. They did hit $1 trillion. And yes, they needed the towels. Michelle Huang's first day at Stanford. Freshman orientation. The inevitable question comes up. What do your parents do? She shrugs. My dad works in computers. Her roommate persists. Like it's support? Something like that. He's always fixing things. 2 weeks later. Business class. The professor pulls up a slide. Today we're studying Nvidia's market dominance. There's Jensen's face, CEO, founder, net worth displayed in billions. Michelle's roommate gasps. That's your dad? Michelle stares, does the math, billions, but they clipped coupons, shopped sales, drove the same car forever. She calls home that night. Mom, are we rich? Lori pauses. Why are you asking? Because apparently Dad runs $1 trillion company, and I found out in Econ 101. Oh, that. That? Mom, I wore hand-me-downs. Your choice. We offered to buy new clothes. You said we should be mindful of spending. Being mindful isn't about being poor, Michelle. It's about being purposeful. But here's what really gets her. Growing up, Michelle thought every dad worked like hers. Leave before breakfast. Home after midnight. Laptop at the dinner table. Emails during her recitals. I thought all dads worked until 2 a.m., she tells her roommate. I thought that was normal. Normal. My dad was home by 6. We had dinner together. Together? Like, talking? The roommate looks at her strangely. Your dad worth billions and you never had family dinners. We had dinners. He just answered emails during them. Quality multitasking, he called it. But then Michelle remembers something else. Those 2 a.m. work sessions? Sometimes she'd sneak downstairs, find him at the kitchen table, designing chips on napkins, just like that Denny's story he'd tell. Can't sleep, kiddo. Bad dream. Come here. Want to see something cool? And he'd show her. Circuit designs that looked like cities. Explain parallel processing using her toy blocks. Make the future feel like a bedtime story. This chip, he'd say, will help doctors see inside hearts. This one will let computers dream. This one, he'd pause, smile, this one's still a secret. She'd fall asleep on his shoulder, wake up in her bed, never questioning why Dad was building tomorrow at 2 a.m. while she dreamed. The Tesla story comes up at Thanksgiving. Michelle's home from Stanford, points out the car in the driveway. Dad, that Model S is literally falling apart. It drives. The door handle's broken. It opens, eventually. Jensen does the math. She's right. So? You could buy a new car with what you make in 1 second. This car works. Why replace something that works? Because you're a tech CEO, driving decade-old technology. It's electric, it's efficient, it gets me to work. What else do I need? Good, keeps them humble. If the CEO drives junk, nobody needs a Lamborghini. But here's the moment that changes Michelle's perspective. Spencer, her brother, chimes in. Dad, even your employees laugh about your car. She's complaining to a friend whose father actually is in its support. Makes $70,000 a year. Good life. Honest work. Must be nice, the friend says, having a dad who could buy anything. He doesn't, though. We lived normally. But he could. There's a difference between can't and won't. Your dad chose to raise you without the weight of wealth. Mine had no choice. That night, Michelle finds Jensen in his home office. Still working, still in that leather jacket. Dad? Hey, kiddo. How's Stanford? I've been thinking about the money thing. He turns from his computer, gives her full attention. Rare. What about it? Tell you what, That numbers in a bank account don't define your worth? That working till 2 a.m. means choosing impact over ease? That a broken Tesla drives the same as a new one? Why didn't you tell us? But we could have had. She thinks. Really thinks. More what? You had education, safety, opportunity. What did you lack? Time. With you. The words hang there. Jensen nods. That's the only currency that matters, and the only one I couldn't afford. This one, he says, just like when she was 7, will let computers understand human emotion. They sit in silence. Then he shows her something on his screen. New chip design. Revolutionary architecture. Really? Maybe. Probably. We'll see. And for a moment, it's 2 a.m. again. She's 7. He's explaining the future. The only difference is now she knows what those late nights cost. Both of them. I'm proud of you, Dad. For the company. For the choices, even the hard ones. The Tesla's door handle isn't broken. I fixed it 3 years ago. I just pretend it's stuck. He smiles, that same smile from the kitchen table. Want to know a secret? What? Because every morning when I fight with it, I remember, the best things require effort, even opening doors. Why? That's insane. That's intentional. And that's the real family secret. Not the hidden wealth, not the late nights. But that everything was a choice. Even the broken door handle that wasn't broken at all. The lesson. All right, stop. We've just watched a kid go from washing toilets to running a $1 trillion company. And if you're thinking lucky guy, you missed everything. This isn't luck. This is a pattern. The same pattern. Over and over. Hidden in plain sight. Let me show you what you've been watching. Pattern 1. The dishwasher becomes the systems engineer. Who does that? Who looks at toilet cleaning and thinks this is an engineering problem? 16-year-old Jensen doesn't just clean bathrooms. He times them, charts them, optimizes them, cuts 45 minutes to 22. Someone who sees systems everywhere, even in a Denny's bathroom at 10 p.m. on a Friday. Fast forward 40 years. What's Nvidia? A company that turned graphics, pictures, pretty things into computational systems, gaming into AI, entertainment into intelligence. Same, exact pattern. The bathroom optimizer became the world's optimizer. Pattern 2. The bullied kid becomes the teacher. 9 years old, rocks flying at his head, blood on his only good shirt. What's he do? Fight back? Run home? Think that's just a nice childhood story? No, he leaves math equations on his bully's desk, turns tormentors into students, transforms violence into value. Watch what happens with Intel. They mock him, publicly, niche player in a niche market. No, he studies toy companies, learns what Intel doesn't understand, joy, then teaches the entire industry that computing isn't about speed, it's about experience. The bully becomes the student, again. Does Jensen fight, sue, compete directly? Pattern 3. Every failure becomes a market map. This is the big one, the pattern inside the pattern. Sega disaster, NV1 chip fails spectacularly. Company almost dies. Normal CEO response, build a better gaming chip. Discovers, scientists, doctors, researchers, AI. Jensen's response, gaming failed us. What else needs graphics? Normal CEO response, find another gaming partner. Microsoft betrayal, Xbox contract vanishes. 40% of revenue, gone. Jensen's response, partners failed us. What if we don't need partners? China ban, 40% of revenue, again, terminated by the US government. Creates direct-to-consumer products, independence. Normal CEO response lobby, lawyer up, fight. See it now. Jensen's response, regulations failed us. What can we build within the rules? Learns, Mandarin, rebuilds everything, legally. This pattern isn't Jensen's, it's universal, it's learnable, it's yours, if you want it. Every door that slams shut becomes a window to a bigger room. But here's what's beautiful. That job you hate, make it a system, time it, optimize it, master it so completely that you transcend it. Those people who mock you, don't fight them, teach them, find what they need, and become indispensable. That failure that broke you, map it. Where did the no come from? What's adjacent? What's possible? The pattern is this. Constraints create creativity. Opposition creates opportunity. Systems create success. Jensen didn't succeed despite washing dishes, getting bullied, and failing repeatedly. He succeeded because of it. Each constraint taught him to see differently, think differently, build differently. The 9-year-old who couldn't speak English had to find other ways to communicate, through math, through value, through teaching. The teenager timing toilets had to find meaning in meaningless work, through systems, through optimization, through excellence. The CEO everyone mocked had to find markets nobody saw, through scientists, through AI, through the future. You want to know the real difference between Jensen and everyone else? Everyone else sees problems as things to escape. Jensen sees problems as blueprints for billion-dollar businesses. That's the pattern, that's the code, that's the revolution hiding in every rejection. So let me ask you, what's your Denny's bathroom? What system are you ignoring because the work seems beneath you? Who's your bully? What knowledge could you share that transforms opposition into opportunity? What's your biggest failure? What adjacent market is it revealing that nobody else can see? Because here's the truth. Jensen Huang isn't special because he's worth $130 billion. He's worth $130 billion because he saw the pattern. And now, so do you. The 50-plus takeaway. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Great story, but I'm 55, 60, 70. My breakthrough window closed. Really? Let's review what Jensen Huang did after turning 50. Age 51, everyone says graphics cards are dead. He invents CUDA, the technology that would power AI. Age 56, China bans his products. He learns Mandarin, from scratch, flies to Beijing 12 times in 1 year. Age 59, the entire tech industry mocks him for sticking with GPUs. He keeps building. Age 60, ChatGPT launches, runs on his chips. He becomes one of the 20 richest humans alive. His biggest breakthrough, the one that changed humanity, came at 60, not 30, not 40, 60. You think you're too old to pivot. This man learned a new language at 56, not Spanish for vacation, Mandarin for survival. But here's what really matters. Those failed years in your past, they're not failures, they're data. That job that went nowhere, Jensen would call that market research. That business that folded, Jensen would say, now you know what doesn't work. That skill nobody values, Jensen built a $1 trillion company on graphics chips nobody wanted. Let me tell you about overnight success. The media says Nvidia exploded with AI. Instant riches. Lucky timing. 30 years. 30 years of being mocked. 30 years of near bankruptcy. 30 years of everyone saying he's wrong. That's 10,950 days of showing up. 262,800 hours of believing. 15,768,000 minutes of building something nobody understood. Overnight. The night lasted 3 decades. But you sitting there thinking it's too late, you have something Jensen didn't. You already know the pattern. He had to discover it through toilets and bullies and failures. You just learned it in 13 minutes. You know that problems are blueprints, that systems beat talent, that teaching beats fighting. More importantly, you have something else. Experience. Real, lived, paid for in scars experience. That career that peaked. It taught you things. That marriage that ended, you learned. That dream that died, it composted into wisdom. Jensen was 56 learning Mandarin. You think he wished he'd started at 26? Of course. Did it matter? Not one bit. Because here's the truth about breakthroughs after 50. They're better. Why? Because they're built on foundations of failure, supported by structures of setback, informed by decades of doing it wrong. A 20-year-old with a breakthrough idea has a 50-year-old with a breakthrough has perspective, context, patience, and the scars to prove they can survive when it goes sideways. Which it will. So let's be specific. That skill you've been developing for 20 years that technology just made obsolete, that's not obsolete, that's ready for transformation. Like Jensen's graphics chips becoming AI engines. That industry expertise everyone says is outdated, that's not outdated. That's institutional knowledge waiting for fresh application. That crazy idea you've been sitting on because someone younger should do it? Jensen was older than you when he decided graphics chips could power artificial intelligence. Everyone laughed. Everyone. Now they're begging for allocations. Here's your homework. Tonight, write down 3 things. 1. What's your equivalent of Jensen's graphics chips? What do you know deeply that the world doesn't value yet? 2. What language, literal or figurative, could you learn at your age that would open new markets? 3. What failure from your past might actually be a map to your future? Because remember, Jensen Huang didn't become successful despite being a 60-year-old CEO in a youth-obsessed industry. He became successful because he was 60, because he'd survived everything, because he'd learned the patterns, because he could wait 30 years for the world to catch up. Your age isn't a limitation. It's your superpower. You just need to learn how to use it. And if a kid who washed dishes at Denny's can do it, what's your excuse? That 9-year-old boy who couldn't speak English, he just became one of the 20 richest humans in history. And he's just getting started at 61. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What's your Denny's bathroom? What's that job everyone said was beneath you, that taught you everything? Maybe you were a secretary who became a CEO, a janitor who invented something, a failed entrepreneur who found gold in the ashes. Drop your failure to fortune story in the comments below. Because here's what I've learned making these videos. Every single one of you has a Jensen Huang moment. That time when rock bottom became a launching pad. Share it. Someone needs to hear it. Someone who's 55 and thinks it's over. Someone who's washing their own dishes right now. Your story might be the pattern they need to see. And if you want more proof that success has no expiration date, hit that subscribe button. Because we're just getting started with the Late Bloomer Billionaire series.